Hey mama, if you're like most women, you probably have some kind of anxiety or fear about birth or the postpartum period. I remember my first pregnancy, being pregnant alongside a couple of my friends, and they were so anxious about birth. And while I was nervous, I also couldn't wait for the experience. Anxiety and fear can run rampant and rob us of the joy and excitement that we deserve as we get closer to birth. So in this video, I'm going to share with you how I dealt with those feelings during both of my pregnancies, what I see happen to women who don't deal with those fears and anxieties during their pregnancy, and my number one way to avoid panicking in labor. I'm Bridget. I'm a childbirth educator, birth doula, and a mama, and it's my passion to help mamas just like you feel confident in your ability to have a happier, healthier, and easier birth. If you haven't yet, make sure you subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. When it came to birthing for the first time, what reduced my anxiety the most was simply learning about birth, and specifically the aspects that were bringing up the fears. One of those fears was tearing. This was the kind of fear that I think a lot of women experience, where I'd be falling asleep and I would just wake up, it would have a hold over me, and I'd be totally awake, unable to stop thinking about it. So I didn't make myself stop thinking about it. I just turned my thinking about it into something more productive, and I started learning about it. And I teach you how to do this in my Built to Birth course, because knowledge is power, and the more you learn, the less you fear. I learned exactly what tearing was, so it wasn't just this vague idea in my mind. I learned about how common it was and how severe it usually was, and then I learned all the ways that I could prevent it from happening, like having the right care provider, breathing my baby out, not lying flat on my back, and using my body as a guide and not numbing it with medication. Then I learned what I could do if it does happen to me, so that I could prepare for the healing process. And in doing this, I was as prepared as I could be. I had power over some things, and then others I did have to release control over. So anything you're feeling anxious or fearful about, I encourage you to write it down as it comes and then start learning about those fears. If you don't know where to start when it comes to learning about birth, take my free mini birth class linked in the description below, where I give you my top 5 tips for a happier, healthier, and easier birth. The second thing I did was listening to positive birth stories. This is so huge because so much of the culture surrounding birth nowadays is scary or very medicalized, when in reality, birth, for the most part, is a very natural and normal part of life. Even if your pregnancy has been a more medicalized event, or you know your birth will have to be due to you or your baby's health or something else, it can still be incredibly empowering and positive, and a great way to shift from that mindset of fear and anxiety is through listening to other people's real life stories about their positive births. Third was taking intentional deep breaths when feeling anxious. Anxiety, stress, or fear tends to shorten and quicken our breaths, and this sends us into our sympathetic nervous system, or our fight or flight mode, where we're just on edge and our body is working in overdrive. Deep breathing is one of the easiest and most accessible ways to move out of the sympathetic state and into the parasympathetic state, which allows you to relax and rest. So anytime I would start feeling anxious, I would breathe in through my nose for 4 to 6 seconds, and then exhale slowly out of my mouth for 6 to 8 seconds for 5 to 10 breaths or more. And as I would exhale, I would really focus on just relaxing all of my muscles from head to toe. And it might sound too easy, but honestly, give it a try, and I think you'll be amazed at how powerful a technique it is. Fourth, I would spend intentional time connecting to my baby and my body daily. Usually I would just do this in the shower after my daughter would be going to bed, because that's where I could guarantee quiet. But I would put my hands on my belly and whisper or just speak to her in my mind. I would tell her how I was feeling and remind her that any stress or anxiousness I was feeling had nothing to do with her, that she was safe, that she was loved, that she was going to bring so much joy to our family. And this connection was always so healing on days where I felt really heavy from stress. Fifth is using affirmation meditations. Mama, where the mind leads, the body follows. So I would say, my body is the safest place for my baby right now. Birth will be peaceful. Labor will begin at exactly the right moment, and other ones. And I found affirmations to be so powerful in my pregnancies, births, and motherhood that I created affirmation meditation tracks that hundreds of mamas have used and loved for their own pregnancies, births, and postpartum seasons. And you can check them out down below. And then lastly, I would envision myself myself in labor. I often did this in the shower again, and would even get into positions that I could picture myself finding comfort in during labor, like leaning on the wall with the warmth of the shower on me. And I would practice breathing and relaxing. Sometimes I would even practice vocalizing. And research shows that visualization prepares your body and mind for what's to come and what you want to happen, and actually helps you accomplish those things in real life. As a doula, what I've seen in women who have not dealt with their fears and anxieties is that the thing they're afraid of, that they've neglected their whole pregnancy, is a thing that they are fixed on in labor, and it becomes more likely to happen. So a little side story, when I played volleyball in high school, my coach always told us, don't tell yourself where you don't want to serve. Tell yourself where you do want to serve, because if you're constantly saying, don't serve out of bounds, don't serve out of bounds, your attention is out of bounds and you're going to serve there. But if you tell yourself, serve to the back corner, serve to the back corner, that's where your attention is, and you'll be more likely to serve there. Women who are so afraid of tearing and don't address that fear before birth are going to be more afraid to push and have more tension in their pelvic floor, and this might contribute to worse tearing. So don't run from those fears in pregnancy. Fear and anxiety is not a bad thing. It means that what is about to happen probably means a great deal to you, as birth should. It's navigating and addressing those fears that is so crucial. So here's my final point in regards to avoiding panicking in labor. And it goes back to what I already said. It's learning how to breathe and how to tap into that parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and relaxation state. This is the foundation of all the comfort measures that I teach in my Built to Birth class. And I teach it to you in my free mini birth class, which I've linked down below. And there are hundreds of women who have just put this basic breathing technique into use and have changed the way that they've experienced labor and birth for the better. When a mama starts panicking, I always bring her back to her breath. Mama, you are built to birth. If you are feeling anxious or overwhelmed, don't let it rob you of your joyous pregnancy and birth. Knowledge is power. So check out the free mini birth class linked below so that you can birth with less fear and more confidence.